formulation I'll come back to. Paint production, again, like every other manufacturer, we've got lots of areas that we can work on. In fact, yeah, as our view of sustainability is broadened, so is the environmental choice. And now it is, we must report to them on an annual basis, audited reports of just what steps we have taken to improve our performance in our production area and waste management. Clearly, energy use is one which is a hot topic that everyone looks at. And in the paint industry, our most intensive energy use is when we're actually grinding and milling our pigments. And very subtle changes in that recipe can have a major impact on the amount of energy which is used. And so we spend a lot of time and energy refining in this area. Packaging is another typical example, and you guys see our packaging of our product. I'm referring to the packaging of the product which we receive. And it's typical that we receive our product in 25 kg multi-wallpaper bags. And we use lots of these, and they will come on a pallet, 40 of these bags on a pallet. And if any one of you have tried to empty a 25 or 40 kg multi-wallpaper bag of cement, for example, you know, you can never get all of the damn stuff out. There's always stuff that gets hooked up there in the folds and the crevices. And it's a nuisance, and it's a nuisance when we are dealing with hundreds of these, that this can be a significant nuisance and a waste. There's been a move by some suppliers in which we use wherever we can, and they supply them in a different style of bag. And it's quite a big bag. It's a ton in the whole bag, and it's in a woven polypropylene, and the whole thing is just lifted by a fork hoist over the vats, and a big, long sort of elephant's trunk thing comes out, and you can simply open this, guide all of the material at a controlled rate into the vat. Everything empties, it's wrapped up and sent back to the supplier. This is something which is not out there and obvious, but for us, it's a tremendous way to improve our performance in waste handling. Waste minimization also must be to the fore, and of course, for economic reasons, if we make 10,000 litres of paint in a vat, we want to get 10,000 litres of paint into a can. But paint being paint, you can't simply do that. It sticks up, as you know, and it's a little bit adhesive, and it hangs up around the vat, and our vats have got baffles and stirrers in, and it's not a simple task to remove it all. So you've got to wash it. And once you start washing stuff, then you're creating yourself a problem. And even though we might use low volume, high pressure water wands, still we end up with washings. Now, where we can, we will certainly reuse those materials. And that takes quite a bit of discipline to make sure the path that those washings go into, and to make sure that they're not fouled by bacteria or contaminated by other materials. But there's quite a chunk of washings which we can't reuse, and these must be treated. And we have a treatment plant which is designed to break the paint down into a solid component and a liquid component. The liquid component should be satisfactory to the council to take down the sewer. The solid component dried and taken to landfill, although we are looking for use for that. The tension there is I've always prided myself on making good paint and stable paint. And stable paint actually hangs together quite easily, quite well. And it's very hard to break and split in two. And the irony is, if I make poor paint, I can make very clean waste, but good paint is much harder to make, particularly some of our colours with these very, very fine pigments. And in fact, washing is also the biggest concern and difficulty that the users of our paint have. Anyone who's used a roller to apply paint, a good quality roller, will know just how much paint those things hold. Because you know when you come to wash them, and you wash them, and you wash them, and you wash them, and still damn paint comes out. And it's a very difficult task. Now, both ourselves and our worthy competitors, Dulux, have endeavoured to assist the trade by promoting and making available small water treatment plants which they can use on the site. But you know, the fact is, these just don't really work. They're not practical. It's a nice concept, but it's more window dressing than real. And the painters themselves have come up with a totally different approach, and their approach is we won't wash stuff. So what they do is they'll cost the rollers into the price of the contract, and they will use the roller, and at the end of the day they'll wrap it up in plastic, and the next morning they'll undo it and they'll work it in again, and they'll use it for the next day and a whole week. No colour changes, of course, and at the end of the week they will throw it away. You could say, oh, it's a bit of a throwaway society thing, that's not really us. But in fact, I believe it's a very practical approach to a difficult problem. The tension for myself is that if you're throwing something away, the tendency is not to buy the very best to throw away. And then, can you buy something just a little less than optimum? And the less than optimum rollers can give a less than optimum finish. And so we're just a little concerned that doesn't happen. End of life, well, you've all heard about our recovery program and the good things that does. A successful end of life program will have the waste product being a useful material for some other process, and that's the challenge that we've found. It's quite easy to supply good paint to charities and to obliterate graffiti. But it's the paint which doesn't have a ready outlet. And we can't use it in our paints because our quality systems preclude that. And so this stuff has been builds up. And we work with a tremendous little firm called the 3R Company. They actually manage our waste progress. They work out of Napier, and they have been instrumental in finding end uses. It's very obvious. Paint should have a use in cement and concrete. And not just as a waste disposal, but some benefits from it. And these guys have done a lot of work on formulations of concrete, and they've found now that by adding paint they can reduce the amount of cement, reduce the plasticizers, reduce the air entraining agents, and there's a significant amount of concrete paving being laid around the Hawke's Bay, which is exceeding the compressive strength of what is required there. And so that's an exciting progress. The difficulty is really bringing this to market, because the concrete industry, God, yeah, they are conservative. They are very difficult to shift. The other exciting thing is that just as stockpiles of waste paint are an embarrassment, there's another huge embarrassment in New Zealand. That's a stockpile of glass, of recycled glass. This is a real issue. And again, concrete would appear to be an ideal means of using up the glass. However, the size of the glass is alkali reactive, particularly at the size of cullet which is produced. And an alkali reactive aggregate will lead to tensions within the concrete and cracking longer term. The concept here is whether the paint will in fact encapsulate the glass and reduce this alkali aggregate reaction. Early days, but very positive results. 3R have taken on a post-grad, hoping to do a doctorate on this in this area, and that would really be a nice killing two birds with one stone, and something which would be which I find exciting. But I saw the same guy, this 3Rs, he did a slab which he did an exposed aggregate containing a green cullet, and it was very, very attractive.